I really spent 28 years of my life thinking that I didn't have a green thumb, because whenever I attempted to keep houseplants, they always died and I could not figure out why. I later realized that I was approaching the whole thing completely wrong. I was not buying plants that were good for the kind of space that I have, the kind of light, the kind of weather that I have. So I tried again towards mid 2020. I have so many houseplants now. I love indoor gardening and this has been a great source of joy for me. So even though I've mentioned houseplants here and there in some videos, I officially decided that I'm going to start talking about plants a little bit more on this channel. If you are a beginner, if you want to also get your first houseplants, today's video is for you, because I'm going to tell you my 3 favorite houseplants that are just really low maintenance and really great to start off with. You don't need to water them too much. You don't need to like take a lot of care of them. They don't get pests. They're not super rare or anything, so they should be easy to find at your local garden store. Hi guys, it's Magali, and if it's your first time on my channel, then welcome. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. I make regular videos on beauty, fashion and lifestyle. So if you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to hit the red subscribe button below this video and subscribe to my channel. I put out new stuff weekly. Indoor gardening has been something of a pandemic hobby for me. Not only do they make your space absolutely beautiful, it's calming and like stress relief just to look at them. Also, a lot of these plants are known to clear air pollution that you have indoors that you may not even really be aware of. If you live in apartments, then there's a lot of like these volatile organic compounds that are around. The materials used to construct your walls, to paint, to MDF furniture lets off these little chemicals that aren't really good for you, and I'm not even really sure most household air purifiers can get them. But all 3 of the plants that I'm going to show you have been known to reduce VOCs or volatile organic compounds, including benzene, formaldehyde and trichloroethylene. So that's just an added bonus. So when I was first getting into plants, I watched a bunch of these like low maintenance plants for beginner wala videos, just like the one I'm making right now. I ended up getting most of those plants and I didn't have the best luck with some of them. I realized that a lot of them, the ones at least made in Western countries, they don't really apply to India where the weather is really hot and humid. Some of those plants can't really survive. So I've taken quite a lot of effort today to pick out these 3 plants I'm going to talk about, and these are virtually unkillable. So even if you've had bad luck and killed plants in the past, like it happens to all of us, these should work for you as long as you understand the basic requirements that each plant needs. So the first plant that I'm going to recommend to you guys is the ZZ plant, and it's also known as ʟᴠɪᴅᴜᴜᴜ. I believe that is the scientific name. This plant is also known as Zanzibar gem and it is native to East Africa. But knowing exactly how it exists in its native environment is something that will help you understand what it needs in your home also. This is one of my favorite plants actually, and I have 2 of them right now, which are kind of both medium to large. So I bought this one last year. This was my first plant that I bought in August or so. Every plant that I'm going to show you guys, I bought online from different places, some from Amazon and a bunch of them from Ugao as well. So this one started as like a small to medium specimen, but it's been steadily growing almost throughout the whole year. It actually goes dormant in winter, but otherwise it's a moderate grower. I get new growth from this pretty often, so this one became rather large, and then this one I just got a few weeks ago, but I already got it large from Ugao. And in fact, I actually transferred some of the plants from here into here. This Ugao plant was so full, just wanted to give it some space to grow. This plant is actually known for like these really beautiful thick stems and these glossy dark leaves. New growth, then you'll see they're naturally a little bit of a lighter green, and then as they start maturing they settle into like a darker green color. But if you see leaves that were like light green or dark green suddenly turning yellow, then that means you're over watering the plant. Fix that at once or your plant will die. The only way you can actually kill this plant is by watering it too much, because it's a drought resistant plant and it holds a lot of water inside the plant, you know. So it has rhizomes under the soil, which are really fascinating to look at. I'm going to put a little shot of the rhizomes on one of my smaller plants when I was repotting it, and they look like potatoes. So that holds a lot of water each time you water it. Even these thick stems hold water. Whenever you see a watering schedule online saying once a week or once every 2 weeks, it really actually depends on a lot of factors, like of where you keep these plants in your home. Is it hot or cold? Is it dry or humid, and all of that. This plant likes to dry out completely in between waterings. So if the soil looks like completely bone dry and you put your finger in the soil and you can't really detect any moisture, that's when it's time to water it. Which for me, since I usually keep the plant close to my northeast window and I don't get any direct sunlight, but I get a lot of filtered sunlight, I water this once every fortnight in the heat of summer, and then every other season I need to water it even less. In the winter, this one just goes to sleep. It stops growing completely. You will not see any changes in the plant. That time you can water it once a month or less. This plant actually can survive 4 months without watering. I wouldn't recommend waiting that long. But if you are a neglectful plant parent, this is the perfect plant for you to have. If you're someone who likes to shower your plants with your love by watering them very often, then you will really need to retrain yourself with this plant and not do that. For tropical plants, you don't want a soil that is like all mud or all clay, because then when you water it, it compacts and it suffocates the roots. So the roots like to breathe and they like aeration. They do not like to just get choked with mud. So I have taken regular potting soil mix and I've added a bunch of perlite and also some pebbles into it just to get that grittiness. These plants have been thriving under my care, if I do say so myself. Oh look, I have a little bit of new growth coming out here. In maybe a month, this will be a whole new stem. This is also the regular ZZ plant, the most common form of it, but there are a few more cultivars now. There's one more plant known as ZZ Raven, in which the leaves and stems are so dark green, they are almost black. And there's another one called ZZ Zenzi, like a bonsai variant of ZZ. That one never grows too big and it will make a really good tabletop plant. These other cultivars that I just mentioned are still newer on the market, so they may be a little bit more harder to find, and they definitely cost more money than a regular ZZ. The second plant that I'm sharing for today's video is another trusty old favorite. This is known as the snake plant. And if we talk about the scientific name, there's a little bit of like a confusion here, because this used to be known as Sansevieria trifasciata, but actually since like 3-4 years, it's now Dracaena trifasciata. Most people just still call it Sansevieria. That is the name that kind of stuck for it. I have 2 different cultivars of this plant, 2 different colors of leaves. There are in fact so many different cultivars of the snake plant that kind of look similar but have different colors. So this is one of the more popular, more common cultivars. This one's also known as mother-in-law's tongue. So this is like the Sansevieria laurenti. So this one, I believe I bought it from Amazon last year itself, maybe pretty soon after I got my first ZZ. And this one's a little newer plant, but it's bigger. This one I got from Ugao, the Sansevieria moonshine. I love the color of this one. It's got this lovely like silvery light cool toned green, so beautiful. This particular cultivar is still a little bit rarer, but this one you'll find anywhere. So when it comes to snake plant, you can get rather small ones like this one, or you can get medium ones like this. If you want something at the corner of your room to kind of make a statement, you can even get much taller snake plants. Like most commonly, a mature snake plant will be around 2 to 3 feet, but apparently in the optimal conditions, this plant can grow more than 6 feet tall. While the ZZ plant, the previous one, was native to East Africa, this is actually native to West Africa. This one also requires a similar watering schedule to the ZZ. You put it in well-draining soil, just like the ZZ, and you water it when the soil feels completely dry. This also has rhizome like the ZZ, but the rhizomes are not quite as bulbous. These leaves, because they are thick, they hold water in them, which is why you need to water it so less. Whenever you see any tropical plant that has like really thick leaves, you know it's holding some water in there. A little bit of this like curling on the leaves is fine, but if you ever see any of these leaves suddenly curl up too much, that's a sign that, you know, it's really, really thirsty, you've not been watering it and you need to water it a little bit more. So I found this one to be quite a slow grower. I have not really seen much growth with mine. So one of the reasons the snake plant is recommended so much is because it's one of the only house plant that produces oxygen even at night time, because most other plants produce oxygen in the day but release carbon dioxide at night. However, this one works really hard to give you like good clean oxygen all of the time. So that's why it's also a great bedroom plant. So if you're an experienced gardener already, I'm sure you were expecting the ZZ and snake plant to be in the video, but you might be wondering what my third plant is. So I did want to feature a winding or trailing plant. This is most commonly known as the philodendron micans, but it's also known by a lot of other names. The proper scientific name is Philodendron hederaceum. Then it's also known as velvetly philodendron, Philodendron scandens. Scandens just means, you know, it's a scandent plant that climbs or trails. This particular plant comes from Central and South America. This is a very resilient plant and there's a few different ways you can grow it. So I'm trying to keep my plant shorter, fuller and upright, but this plant wants to trail. It wants to grow long and just hang, or it actually wants to climb one tree because that's what it does in its native habitat. This is a great plant if you want to keep it at the top of a bookcase or a shelf, and you'll get these beautiful trailing downwards. Or if you give it a moss stick or a coir stick, it will grab onto that and trail upwards. If you want to keep it compact like me, it's recommended that you prune some of the extra leaves off now and then. And when you prune those extra bits, they don't go to waste. You can put those in water, and as long as they have a leaf node, they will root and you could replant those into a pot. I've actually distributed cuttings of this plant to my friends as well. If you want it to be fuller, trimming it is actually better. And I'll show you guys a visual example of this stem where I cut off a little like growth at the center where it was growing long. I just cut it off because like I cut off the top growth, it actually is sprouting new growth from the sides, so that's how it gets fuller. This one does need some light. It prefers indirect light, like the kind that I have. You do not want to keep it in direct sunlight because it would be too harsh and the plant would start curling up and burning and eventually die if you did that. It wants a lot of nice filtered light. If you have a north window like me, you get good filtered light, but if you get direct sunlight at your window, just try keeping it a little bit further off from the window. That would be the ideal position for it. And the reason these plants require that kind of light is because they grow in like these dense jungles, these rainforests, but they grow towards the bottom of the jungle, and there are really big trees that take most of the direct sunlight, so they are used to getting a much softer light underneath. They're actually called understory plants because of that, and they do remarkably well in homes. This one also requires a nice well draining soil mix, but it has slightly more frequent watering requirements than the ZZ and the snake plant. Summer I water this about once a week. If it's not as hot, I can go maybe 10 to 14 days also without watering it. If you forget to water it for a little while, it will tell you. The leaves will start suddenly curling up, and that's when you know you have to give it a good drink of water, and then within a day the leaves will have perked up and opened out again. And even if you are not very consistent with watering this, it's not going to like throw tantrums or anything. This is one of the fastest growing plants that I have. And in nice warmish humid weather like it is now, I have new leaves opening up on this almost every day. There is one opening up right here. I just love looking at like a leaf as it starts out. It's kind of like a stick, and then it slowly starts unfurling, and over the course of a few days you have a beautiful new leaf. Because this plant is such a fast grower, I've been doing a little bit of like arts and crafts, I guess, with some of the extra leaves, and I've been using them to do impressions in clay for some ceramics I'm working on. The leaves are really pretty, and because there are new leaves really often, I don't feel too bad about pruning this plant. Those were my 3 picks for easy houseplants. I hope I've given you guys all of the information that you may need to start out. If there's something I didn't really cover, then I would be very happy to answer any of your queries in the comments below. If you have been thinking of getting houseplants forever, now might be the perfect time to start. Your life will become better for it. Like, nobody I know who got houseplants regrets it. It's just the best. One caveat to know is that all three of the plants I feature are not exactly pet friendly plants. I have 4 cats. If you live in a house with cats or dogs, that doesn't mean you can't have these plants. I know many people who have cats as well as all of these plants, but you want to be sure that your pets are not eating the leaves, because that can cause them some medical issues. You either have to be aware of that, or you need to look up a list of plants that are pet friendly. So if you already are like a plant person, I would love to know what you think I should have included in this list. Which are your favorite houseplants that you think are really good for beginners, that grow pretty easily and are fuss free and don't require an excessive amount of care. Just leave me a comment below and we can chat. Take care and stay safe. I'll see you guys soon.